I'm just kind of starstruck that you're here, because I've been following Kathryn Goetzke for a really long time, and Scarlett Lewis. She brought me Scarlett Lewis, who they're working on some really fantastic projects together, and one cause that we see as applicable to everyone is finding that hope is teachable and that love is something we want to spread, and that's something that I think we can all, that resonates with so many of us. And so I wanted to just let these two ladies introduce themselves because I could not do them justice, but go ahead and take it away, Kathryn.
So nice to be here. Yeah, it's been so long since we've connected. And yeah, my name's Kathryn Goetzke. I'm a representative at the United Nations for the World Federation for Mental Health, and I run a company. I'm the Chief Hope Officer at the Shine Hope Company and started a nonprofit. It's been almost 20 years, so I celebrated 19 years this year. IFRED, the International Foundation for Research and Education on Depression, which we changed the name to Hope, and yeah, I'm really grateful to be here and share more.
Hi everybody, it's great to be in this room with you. My name's Scarlett Lewis, and I'm the founder of the Jessie Lewis Choose Love Movement, really shortened to Choose Love Movement. This organization started after the Sandy Hook tragedy 10 years ago in what is still the worst mass shooting in an elementary school. My son, my 6-year-old son, was murdered in his classroom alongside 19 of his classmates and 6 educators. And I went home after that day and found a message that he had written on the kitchen chalkboard, nurturing, healing, love. Realized that's the solution. That addresses the root cause of the suffering that leads to a lot of the issues, the escalating issues in our society, including violence and mental health. And so I decided to spread that message, and that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years in schools, homes, and communities around the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know you guys need to keep going every day, and what I just would love to hear more about what inspires you and kind of what keeps you, motivated to just keep spreading your messages, even though you both have been through some tremendous events in your lives, and you've really turned that into something remarkably positive and can help move the needle in those specific areas. So what inspires you?
Yeah, well, for me, it is the fact that hope is teachable, that it is a skill that you can learn how to amplify and activate in your life. My background, I started the nonprofit 19 years ago. I had another company, the Mood Factory, and we actually did the first nationwide cause marketing campaign for mental health. I had a brand called Mood Lights. Got it in Lowe's, a number of retailers, but eventually got a big licensing deal with Lowe's Home Improvement. We sold 9 million products to raise over $1 million for the nonprofit work that I was doing, and I was doing a lot of work to help rebrand depression initially. I lost my father to suicide when I was 18 years old. I had my own attempt in my early 20s, struggled with addiction, anxiety, depression, PTSD, all of kind of these diagnostic things. And so I was sitting in an event, I think the World Health Organization, on suicide prevention, and they were talking about restricting access to means and 800 numbers for prevention. And I knew that wasn't going to save my life, and I know it wouldn't have saved my dad's life. And so I wanted to get, if we want to solve for suicide, we have to understand what the cause is. And across all of the literature, hopelessness is the single consistent predictor of suicide. Single. And it's also the predictor of violence. And hopelessness is learned. So we learn how to be hopeless. Now in the US right now, we have 57% of our teen girls identifying with persistent hopelessness. So I look at the statistics, and then I look at the fact that hope is actually teachable. You can teach kids how to be hopeful. We've proven that with our program that we created to teach youth around the world how to hope. And so to me, knowing that and being equipped with skills and tools to be able to teach that is what gets me up every day.
So we all have seen headlines, we look at them every day, we see all the things that are happening in our world, the escalating issues. We're all thinking about them. I mean, we have, for the first time ever, these cell phones that are really front row tickets to the worst of humanity. So there's also an algorithm of fear involved. And so when there's a mass tragedy across the country, you live it with the people, and it impacts you much more than it would previously. And I've been in a tragedy. And so what gets me going every day is being part of the solution. You know, I didn't want to be a victim, another victim of Adam Lanza, who was the school shooter. And so in order to do that, I had to take my part of the responsibility for what's going on in our world. And it was the best decision that I made. I got a lot of pushback from that. But my thinking was, unless I take responsibility for what's going on in our world, I can't be part of the solution. And now we know through research that positive action is the opposite of anxiety. You know, the pandemic of anxiety. COVID is a pandemic. Anxiety is a super pandemic.
We're in an epidemic of loneliness.
Yeah, and loneliness, right. So I think seeing the results of the Choose Love movement, you can teach hope, but we also know that we have to teach people to hate, because babies aren't born hating, babies aren't born mass murderers, babies aren't born with mental health issues. This is something that's cultivated through emotional pain. You can teach people to hate, but you can also teach people to love and have hope. So hence the Choose Love movement, because our personal power is in our choices that we make every day, all day long, and we can choose love over fear. And it's a choice that we actually make every day. But to be aware of it and be empowered by it is pretty amazing.
Thank you so much. Could you talk a little bit about some of your goals, you know, down the road and what you see in the next? I know you're working together on some projects, but if you'd like to just share some of your goals, that'd be great. I don't know if you wanted to share, you had some slides as well, so I'm happy to share those. It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, our goals, I have a company goal, a nonprofit goal. We want everyone in the world to know what hopelessness is and how to activate and get to hope. So, you know, once you identify, and hopelessness isn't something that someone that's sick has. We all have moments of hopelessness throughout our day. So if we get caught off in traffic, if we have to wait in line, if we get an email from someone, that's a moment of hopelessness. And how do you manage that moment of hopelessness? And then, you know, there are bigger moments of hopelessness, and how do we manage those moments? And how do we teach people to do it in healthy ways? So our aim is to ensure all know what hopelessness is and how to get to hope. The company is named the Shine Hope Company because SHINE is the framework. It's a mnemonic we use for how we teach hope. We've created evidence-based programming for young kids, and we've now expanded that to all populations. So we use stress skills, happiness habits, inspired actions, nourishing networks, and eliminating challenges. So how we stop those negative thought patterns that get in the way of our ability to hope. So we now have programming for young kids. We just launched a teen program. We want all teens to know how to hope. It's a peer-to-peer teaching program. We have a 10-module evidence-based college course. We want to activate hope on the college campuses. We have a Hopeful Cities activation, so we're now working with mayors to activate hope throughout their cities. We have an adult 90-minute course. We have Moments of Hope cards. We have brochures that explain this concept that we want in libraries and healthcare centers. You know, we want to do cause marketing campaigns and partnerships with other brands to really activate this message. So we want to just not use the Shine Hope, the brand, but also teach these skills. I mean, once youth understand that they're learning how to be hopeless, really from us, and they can take their power back and learn how to be hopeful and use their pain for their power, it has profound transformation capabilities with youth.
Amazing, thank you.
So in the last 10 years, we've really spread organically by word of mouth only and referral of our program from educator to educator. We have lifespan programming because it's a universal language that we teach. It's all based on a powerful formula, and it starts with courage from Jesse's example of courage. Jesse actually saved 9 of his classmates' lives before losing his own. And that's the same capacity for courage that we all have. Courage, research shows, is like a muscle. You can practice it to strengthen it. And then we use the nurturing, healing love and the translation into the rest of the formula, which is actually neuroscientifically accurate to bring our personal power back inside of us, where we can make things happen, we can make the choices, and the rest of the formula is so courage plus gratitude. It takes courage to be grateful when things aren't going your way, plus forgiveness, so it takes courage to forgive, and then plus compassion in action, and that is having the courage to step outside of your busyness, distraction, even your own pain and suffering to help somebody else. And that is choosing love. So in the last 10 years, we're now in over 14,000 schools in every state. In fact, we're the only program that's based in love that's in schools. We're the most taught social emotional learning program in a couple of states, and we're also spread into 120 countries. And this has been really just me going out and attending events, being asked to speak to nationwide events, traveling internationally, really talking to anybody that will listen about a different approach to the solution. If you look at the pathway to violence, as per the Department of Homeland Security, a lot of times the way that we're wired to think, we have a negative bias, we focus on the problem, and so we focused on the attack end, and I realized actually there's not a whole lot of people focusing on the grievance end. It's the grievance that escalates into the attack. So we decided to focus on that end, the proactive, preventative end, giving kids the skills and tools they need to manage the grievance before it escalates into violence, mental illness, substance abuse. So we've really had an incredible run based on the organic capacity of where we've been. But my goal is to kind of ramp it up at this point. We've had 10 years of success, incredible metrics on our programs. We're evidence-based. And so now I think we're ready to take it to the next level, impact more people.
Thank you so much for that. And it gives, I think this panel, more than anything, I was hoping, and it did, is give us all some hope and some tools that we can use in our own lives and among our own children, because I know that so many children are struggling, especially, like you said, adolescent girls. During the pandemic, I almost lost someone to suicide, and she was only 15 years old, and it's just really something that I think we all at some point have had a brush with. And so I think it's relevant to everyone, especially coming out of, a very, very heavy time, into heavier times, arguably. And so I think, hope and love are something that we can all really get behind. And I love that you have evidence-based strategies that are rooted in research, that this is actually what we need and what can work. I guess we did want to talk a little bit about I didn't mention that yet, but the theme was authenticity in action for this summit. I joked that I was going to change it to everything changes, because everything kept changing. But I'd love to just, if you could share how companies and other nonprofits and people representing schools or government agencies, how they can engage with you to sort of bring that programming and sort of spread your message.
Yeah, well, there's tons of ways to engage. I mean, through cause marketing campaigns, for both of us, it'd be amazing to really activate through branding and through messaging on products. It's such a powerful way. It's how we started initially with the work on hope. I kind of abandoned my other company, the Mood Factory. I mean, it's really on the sidelines, because the evidence around hopelessness is so compelling that you could actually teach, that I was able to prove that you could teach how to hope. Because I thought, if hopelessness is the cause, let's figure it out. They were measuring hope, but they weren't teaching you how to hope. So I created a program. I was like, well, let's figure out how to do that. So I've been studying that the last 10 years. But really to get now brands and companies activated around that, super important. To bring these programs into the educational system, so to bring Hopeful Minds is the program for young kids. If you know mayors, to get hopeful cities activated in your city. I do a lot of workplace talks, keynotes. I can measure your workplace hope. Hope impacts, your retention of your employees, healthcare costs. There are all kinds of things. We can get your employees activated in volunteer work. So there are a lot of ways to engage. If you happen to know any ambassadors of countries, I'm working to get an International Day of Hope established at the United Nations, first Monday of May of next year. So we have a 5-day social campaign. We would love to activate you all around it. But yeah, there are tons of ways to activate, so feel free to reach out, get in touch.
Ditto, and plus I'll add that I think that safety is at the top of all of our brains, and it's a big cause of anxiety. And we can't control a lot of times what goes on around us, but we can control ourselves. So our message to activate with us is everything that Kathryn said, but also personally, I wish that I had known what I know now 10 years and a day ago. So I really encourage parents to get involved in their children's safety. Let their kids see them contacting their schools and making sure that they have an evidence-based social and emotional, really comprehensive program that not only has programming for the school, but also corresponding programming for the home, for the parents, and the communities. That's what Choose Love offers, and all of our programming is no cost, because this would have saved my son's life, as well as the shooters, by the way. I mean, that happened because he was in so much pain. And I have this motto that there are two kinds of people in the world. There are good people obviously like everybody in this room coming to a cause marketing event, but also good people in pain. And that is a hopeful statement, because there's always something that we can do to help another person in pain. So I would make sure that you contact your schools if you have kids, to make sure that they have this and they address the grievance end, number one. Number two, I would start looking, maybe engage in the chooselovemovement.org website and see what the skills and tools are you can bring into your home. Help share us on social media, because this is spread by word of mouth. And it's really interesting to me that is still, to me, the most powerful way to spread a message is by word of mouth. It's incredible that the spread that we've had in 10 years with just really me going around with my bag. So
I think it's just so refreshing to hear that there's something you can do. You know what I mean? Because I think every time these tragedies happen, we're all sitting there just stunned and curious, like, what could we have done? And what I love about you both is that you found something we can do. And I think, we have to just join together and do it. But I'd love to give at least a few minutes if anyone in the audience wants to ask a question.
Not really a question, but more of a comment. I work for a nonprofit. We provide free mental health training for firefighters here in the city and their families. And we know through our own network and contacts that active firefighters are taking their own life at an alarmingly increasing rate. But it's not being divulged by the city or the department. And part of this beautiful ethos of the community that we serve is that they take care of their own. So when someone takes their own life, their firehouse will surround that family with love and support, but they'll often shut out much needed and well-grounded support from the outside. So we as a mental health organization struggle where we want to talk about suicide more openly, but we also don't want to lose the trust of the community we serve. And so we're kind of caught in this middle ground that we don't really know how to move forward with. So this is a really helpful conversation, so thanks for that.
Thank you for the work you do. And I mean, it just goes to show that stigma is still alive and well, perception. And working hard to change that, and the work you do helps to really facilitate that. One of the things we're trying to do is really normalize the conversation around hopelessness, and hopelessness being the key predictor. And would love to talk to you more. We have policemen now teaching our programming to kids as a way to activate their own hope. We know those that teach hope are higher in hope. So potentially could, talk to you about that. But thanks for the work, and yeah, I think as time progresses, it'll be, because it is important to get the community engaged and supporting in the grieving process and support process. So.
We work with first responders as well. We're actually mandatory training in New Hampshire, and so let's talk after this.
Absolutely, thank you both.
Does anyone else?
Kudos for all the work you've done, and it's made a huge difference in so many lives. But I'd love to hear your perspective on the potential extensibility of what you guys are doing into the international ecosystem, because one thing that's become clear is the same kind of emotional triggers that are rampant, here in the United States are also rampant elsewhere in the world, and the extent to which one might see a sort of halo effect if we could figure out how to deploy a lot of those same educational programs and best practices internationally.
That's a great question. I think the key issue is the universality of the message. So I'll speak just really quick for hope and for love. I mean, that translates into every language, and this powerful concept that we can actually choose it with increasing loneliness and all the other issues that everyone is facing. It's the root cause all across the world. And so that is the key. It's why I'm here. It's like, how do we ramp up this message? How do we get it out more?
Yeah, and we're both global for sure. Our programming is global, so that was key for me as I developed the program. How do you hope, and how do we make it universal? And it is a universal construct that's easily understood across cultures. So I've been all over the world studying it, doing focus groups with kids, doing pre and post intervention research. So super grateful around the ability to activate that global brand around hope and a common language and framework. So super passionate about it as well, and it's critical globally for all cultures and for all people.
I think the other issue is to keep it simple, the simplicity of the message. And our message revolves around a formula and a choice moment where you pause in between what's happening, say a conflict, and your thoughtful response instead of impetuously reacting. It's talking about the neuroscience of our brain and how our brain wants to defend us just automatically and with that hit of dopamine. But when we thoughtfully respond with love, which is from our higher level thinking area, in terms of the formula, making a heroic choice, we get a dose as an acronym, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, of what is called the happiness quartet. So it's so simple, right? But when you hear that, and we know that our fear center is 4 times faster, everything goes through our fear center first, and then it hits our prefrontal cortex. So easy to cut off the blood flow to our executive thinking and just react defensively. That alone, learning that, changed my life. It's just like in a split second. So it's a lot of awareness things that are really big things that can change a life in one sitting. And I think that's really important, and that's also part of the attraction to both of our movements.
I have time for one more. Or if you want to.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that too. I mean, I love working with Scarlett because our messages are so complementary. Like, you need hope and you need love, and both of them. And the programming that we have is very complementary too. So it's amazing to be, newly on this journey with her.
It's really more of a comment. I'm a writer, so coming from a language perspective, people always say, I have hope, or people use it as a directive, like, come on, have hope. But you never hear learn hope. So it's just in our vernacular that it's something that we either have or we don't. It's this like false binary. So hearing you speak, and especially Scarlett, when you talk about simplicity, that thought occurred to me of that phrase, learn hope, how it could be helpful.
Yeah, that's part of our public health campaign, is really rebranding the word hope overall, because it is so kind of misused. And there's a famous book, Hope is Not a Strategy. And actually, hope is a strategy, and it's, I would argue one of the most important strategies to use. And so part of our messaging and our campaign is around hope is a strategy, hope is measurable and teachable, hope is not a wish, and that's often the language that we use around hope. And so that's a challenge and also an opportunity is once people start measuring their hope, it's an 8-question scale, super easy. We also have a youth hope scale that's validated, been used a long time, and we know outcomes as it relates to how people measure on that scale. And so our aim is to increase that score and, again, to rebrand the word overall. So, and we tell people to have hope, but that's a really, if you don't have hope and you're told to have hope, that can perpetuate hopelessness. It's like, well, how do I hope? This happened to me, how can I be hopeful? And so our aim is these are steps you take. It doesn't mean you run from your despair. It doesn't mean you don't have sadness or anger or frustration. It means you kind of honor that and how do you use that and get back to feeling better, and how do you get from that helpless state to inspired action?
I just wanted to add quickly to that. There's a focus on the negative in our society. It's because of our negative bias, but there's a thing called post-traumatic growth. And we're actually designed as human beings to grow through adversity. It gets us out of our comfort zone, into our growth zone. So if we can teach kids to have the courage to face adversity, get curious, look at what's happening, ask yourself, what are the lessons in here for me? How am I going to grow through this? How am I going to be strengthened by this? It reduces fear, and fear is what exacerbates pain, physically and mentally. Fear inhibits healing. So really the ultimate thing is choosing love over fear in our message, and it can be taught. It's not hard to teach. It's simple for kids. They get it right away. It's kind of the big kids that need a little more work, and it's practice every day.
We could talk for the whole afternoon, but I'm so grateful for you guys being here and sharing your message and your organizations, and I have no doubt there's some really amazing people in this room who will help us spread that message of hope and love, and I think all of us will walk away with something that we can activate on from this conversation. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you.